Breaking down Tuesday with John Butler. 3 Nebraska defenders who chose to come back and why. That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 2. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Yesterday, Tuesday, got a chance to really get in front of John Butler for a little while, Nebraska's defensive coordinator, really the first time as he has made that transition to defensive coordinator. Some takeaways right off the bat. I mean, it's a first impression, sort of, even though he was around the staff last year. I would say, first of all, Mitch, the lettuce, the hair, the salad coming out of the back. You know, he slicks the hair back. He's a lot like Dana in that way. Slicks the hair back, and he's got the hair coming out the back. Like, good hat guys. That's where I'd start.
They're good hat guys, and I was thinking like that's kind of the case with all of Nebraska's coordinators because X got some slicked hair himself.
Yeah.
Just a bit. Yeah. I think that's what you get when you have a bunch of guys around about the age of 50. You know, maybe some issues with keeping that going up top. So
yeah, not so much here.
Yeah, I mean, you could choose to just go really, really close to the vest, or you could choose the direction that those Nebraska coordinators have opted. This is the issue, the topic with Nebraska football that I know all fans are eager to know.
Yes, people care about this. That's why I mentioned it right off the top. It's actually a company directive. They were like, you guys have to talk about this guy's hair. So
that and The Crown, which we're not watching live today as we record this podcast.
We will be watching maybe tonight. So yeah, we could talk about that briefly. The other, I think the main takeaway, I mean, he's an interesting guy. He stood up there for 20 minutes and did not talk about a single player and like made mention of it multiple times. Even when he's asked directly about specific players, like, hey, I'm not gonna single anybody out, like, point blank period. I mean, I'm just not gonna do that. People ask where guys are on the depth chart, how it's coming along for them. Is like, yeah, we're gonna really get into that. And so, like, my thing, and this sounds bad, but I don't mean it in the way that sounds bad. Like, he comes from an NFL background. I just get the sense that there is a little bit more of like a transactional, deal here where it's like, yeah, he's got a job to do. And obviously, and we're about to hear it in the clip that we played a second, he really likes developing guys and seeing them grow and all of those things. But like, the further we go along here in the Matt Rhule era, the Matt Rhule tenure, the less we hear about, this football in like this nebulous sort of static way. And the more we hear about it in like, how you playing, like that's it. What do you kind of, what are you able to help us with right now? And I think John Butler fits into that really, really perfectly.
Yeah. I got a text from another media member who was not at the press conference yesterday in the middle of Butler's 15 to 17 minutes. And it said, can Butler play it any closer to the chest? And my response was NFL to the core. That's that's what you get in the NFL, not from everybody. Who have we recently experienced in the NFL who was very much not like that? The Dolphins coach, what's the professorial? Yeah, he's not like that. No. But most of them are kind of cut from that cloth. And Butler has roots in college. He was the Penn State defensive coordinator for a year. So it go like most coaches, they've been back and forth. But I think where he really developed the personality that you see on display Tuesday, it comes from the NFL, and that fits him well. I think probably by nature, he's somebody who's not like an oversharer. Like, he's not somebody who's going to walk into a room and have this giant personality. And we can talk let's like shift up the order of things we're going to talk about here, because I wanted to talk about this in the second segment. But you definitely, there is substance there with Butler. It's not like just because he doesn't have this big outward personality, like I don't think we should assume, much like with Donovan Raiola, you shouldn't assume that like this guy is like boring. Like that's not the case. Like players want to play for him. Like that's the history in Buffalo. Same thing with Donovan, who will from on Thursday. That's the history at Nebraska and Notre Dame and other places. But I thought where he was the most interesting was when he was asked by your colleague there at 1620 The Zone, Matt McMahon. Yes, about kind of why you do what you do. And let's play that as John Butler kind of gives his why for coaching football.
Ultimately, I think it's the reason why you do it. It's a pretty cool thing to see guys get better because, whether you're in the NFL or you're in college, like they put so much time into this and we all sacrifice so much to be and do what we do, whether you're a college football coach, a pro football coach, college player, or a pro player. It requires so much time. It requires so much sacrifice. And I know it's a game, but at the end of the day, like when you see players develop like we did in Buffalo for the 6 years I was there, and then like using an example of, we had a kid last year, Donnie Jones, that didn't play a whole lot during the season, and he just kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And he played 50-something plays in a bowl game because he was ready to play at that time. And now he needs to keep getting better. Not singling him out as an example, but when you see that growth, then it's your job to keep encouraging that growth, because then that feeds that hunger and that desire to keep getting better, because they start to see the fruits of their labor. They start to see that the work and the time that they're spending and the work and the time that you're investing in them is rewarding. And at the end of the day, then you start to see huge growth, because now they really start to believe that they can do it, and they start to believe that they are good enough, and they start to believe that they do belong, whatever level it is. So that's one of the coolest things about my career, and I get no bigger satisfaction than when I get a text, Christian Benford just signed a $76 million contract with the Buffalo Bills. We drafted him in the sixth round at Villanova. So days like that, when you get text messages from kids like that, makes you feel pretty good about what you're doing, and makes you feel pretty good that you made the career decision that you did.
So that's kind of cracking the code right there. That's the deepest you went. That's the longest answer that he gave. It's like when you want to get to the core of John Butler, maybe start talking to him about player development and giving something back to the guys who play this game.
Yeah. I think I like to look there, and then, after he told the story about Christian Benford, and he signed a $76 million contract, drafted in the sixth round out of Villanova, and he laid it all out, and he goes, he just kind of shrugs, is like, I don't have to explain to you what that means. That's what it is. Right. And so he's pretty, like it's on the surface. And honestly, it's refreshing in a way. I think, because how many times have we heard coaches come in here and, they talk a certain way, and they have this idea for, they have this vision for what they're going to look like. And, by saying that, you're making, you're accidentally like making promises and things like that. I think he's like a day-to-day football guy. Like, it's about football. And, the more time that goes on too in the Rhule era, I think the less we talk about culture and guys doing the right things and all that stuff. And the more, and that's good. That means that stuff they feel good about. It had to be done, right? But now you're in the football playing part. now you're in we have to be really good at football. And I think John Butler is honestly a pretty good fit for that. This sort of part of their development as a program.
He had a second there in that answer where he almost started talking about a player and almost started praising a player. It was like, are you gonna take Donovan Jones and have him be the one guy that we get out of this interview, where you've given him something, you've conceded that like this is a guy that you want to watch on the Nebraska defense in 2025, but then he quickly took it back and he goes, not to single out him. It was only an example. That was only an example that came into his mind, where when he talked about this development that he prioritizes in the way that he coaches, like, here's a guy from 2024 who started and was not ready to play in our defense. And by the bowl game, we had him out there for 50 snaps. So it's funny because already I think you see, and it's not everybody, like, guys have their own personalities on the defense, but always, if you play for a coach, whether it's your position coach or your coordinator, or in most cases the head coach, and you're a player, or if you coach for somebody, you kind of start to take on some of their traits. And I think we'll see this more and more the longer that Butler stays in charge of the Nebraska defense, is players who kind of adopt some of those things. I asked Elijah Judy, who was one of the 3 players to speak on Tuesday, about the experience of playing alongside number 96 and 97, Keona Davis and Williams Nwaneri, and just got completely nothing. Like, I wanted to get some sound. I wanted to get a quote. I wanted to have something to put in my back pocket. So when I write or talk about those 2 guys here this spring or in the summer, I can go, hey, Elijah Judy said this, and I got this. Nope. He was like, they're good players. So that's the John Butler coming out already in the defensive personnel.
That's awesome. We'll have more thoughts on John Butler, Nebraska's defense, and a couple more of those players when we return on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
Let's take a minute right now to talk about Supply House. You can get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades at Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of more than 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast and from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn if you are one of those people too. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Do it right now. All right, welcome back on this Tuesday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. It's raining in parts of eastern Nebraska as we speak. Connor, you were at Haymarket Park yesterday in the afternoon. They moved that game up. How was the attendance there for Nebraska Creighton? First of all, Creighton beat Nebraska 9-5 with some late inning execution. Huskers struggles, inconsistency, I suppose we should say, after the weekend series win against Oregon State. The inconsistency continues. Would have honestly been surprised if it was anything other than inconsistent, because that's what we've seen for the first 2 months of this baseball season. How were things at Haymarket on Tuesday?
My broadcast partner and I, John Bishop, were remarking throughout our broadcasts that the crowd seemed a little bit it skewed to the older side. 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, but man, they show up like, you know, there's nowhere in the country where you take a 6 o'clock game and then you move it up to 2:30 on a Tuesday and the weather is bad and it's miserable and it's a 3+ hour long game. I don't think there's anywhere where you're getting more than 1,000 people, and Nebraska certainly had that yesterday. I don't know what the attendance number was, but it was good. Let's see, 4392. I don't think it was that many. But
wow,
that's
got to be tickets sold.
Yeah, I don't think it was that many. So I don't know. There were probably 2,000 people there yesterday, which is great.
It was not a great day to play or watch baseball.
No.
I was on the diamond on Tuesday night for my triumphant return to the first base coaching box. It's my last year. So sad. It's so sad. Everything's going to be a year of lasts for me. But the last opening day, and it was manageable as far as the weather at the beginning of the game out in West Omaha, and then we got into like the time when the sun was starting to go down. There are no lights at the field where we played, and you got after 7 o'clock, and it was cloudy, so you weren't getting any of the sunset helping things out. And yeah, we had to shut it down at about 7:30, 7:40. But it was productive, and it was just great to be on the diamond. I wish we could have some better weather here in the first week of April.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there, and then eventually it'll be normal. Hey, Mitch, we have not talked about Matt Rhule and his appearance in a TikTok yet. I think we should probably use a minute or two here to discuss this in great depth.
Yeah. So on Monday, Matt Rhule appeared in a video that circulated online and got all kinds of people riled up for absolutely no reason. If you're a rival fan of Nebraska, maybe sit this one out. Like, you don't need to comment on everything that you see. I know that's kind of the MO of certain social media personalities. But so Harper Murray, the Nebraska volleyball star and big personality, she's into TikTok. If you don't know that, made a video with Matt Rhule at Memorial Stadium, a little dance, and Matt's got some moves. It did appear in this video clip. I was wondering if that was even real. Like, did they do something to doctor this? But he did like some moonwalk stuff and a little like upper body worm move. He threw his hat. It was I don't know. Part of me wants to ask about this on Saturday when Rhule talks, and part of me wants to not have anything to do with it because I don't want to be the source. And here we are talking about it. I don't want to be the source of like negativity coming at student athletes at Nebraska. Like, Harper has had enough of that, doesn't need it. And there was some of that as a result of this thing going like semi-viral.
It's interesting. I would like to maybe, not that I care I don't think there was probably like a long thought out decision of he was going to appear in a TikTok or not.
Nope.
It probably was just a spur of the moment thing, I guess. But the same thing with him continues to be true, where I think we talked about this a couple of days ago. Remember when he hit the golf shot and it was, there was a bunch of pressure on him. I think it was in one of the Chasing 3 episodes. He had to make it through the field goal post or whatever. Like one shot he had to make it through, and at the end his celebration was like, I probably don't make that, 7 out of 10 times, but you get me up there in a pressure situation and I'm good. He could step up to the plate and for 10 seconds. Rip off something pretty solid on a TikTok. I think he's a primetime player. I think he'd be a really good pinch hitter in baseball. Step up to the plate in the biggest moments and do some damage.
That's the old walk-on linebacker coming out of him. I mean, I know Nebraska fans want him to have like that primetime player moment in like a 2-minute drill with his decision making. Like, how are you managing the timeouts? Like, what are you doing on fourth down here?
We got TikToks. That's what we got.
This was definitely, and I don't know, I don't have any insight into this, but I've heard him go this route before. This was an homage. This was done for his daughters, Vivian and Leona. They are Harper Murray fans, and they got their dad out there dancing with her for a moment. All right, that's enough about TikTok and and viral moments that involve crossover between Nebraska volleyball and football. So, okay, Matt Rhule's got kind of a big personality, as we have seen in his media moments, as we've seen on social media. I think we can ascertain that Dana Holgorsen has got a big personality. He's got lots of little quips up at the media sessions. He, somebody that people just tend to like to watch, whether it's on the sidelines when he was a head coach or in what he's doing now. He's magnetic for whatever reason. Mike Eckler, same kind of deal. Mm-hmm. He tells stories. He's got one-liners. He's got all kinds of little Ecklerisms that come out. What does Nebraska have with John Butler, the new defensive coordinator? And because he doesn't match up with those guys as much personality wise, is this like the right fit? Is this the personality that Nebraska should have for its defense to kind of make things work? I mean, Tony White has a big personality, and that worked for Nebraska. But I think there's something to like having all different types in leadership roles in an organization.
I think it's TBD. Like we don't know exactly what that is. And the line that I think we're going to, from the press conference yesterday that might come back up at some point this summer or into the fall was talking about his relationship with Phil Snow, who he said has been coaching 100 years, and then said it's an unbelievable growth opportunity, which could be taken a variety of different ways. I think, like we've talked about, the interesting structure that they have on that defensive side of the ball, and maybe the idea is it's a little bit more, leader by committee, I guess, on that side. So maybe the personality of one person matters less, but somebody's got to be the voice of it, right? And I get maybe it's TBD if that's Butler, who obviously has the position as defensive coordinator. But right, who's the leader? Who's the voice?
Yeah, I think the dynamic and how that all comes together is a huge part of it. Is a huge like key for Nebraska in 2025. Is because it could fall flat. Like they could end up in a situation in October where Butler just isn't feeling it. Like he feels like maybe he doesn't have the kind of control that he wants because Rhule is going to Phil Snow after they give up 31 points to Michigan. But John wants to have autonomy in calling the deal. Like there's any number of directions that it could go. It could be very good too. Like they could say this collaboration, we found lightning in a bottle here. I was curious if Butler had ever been around a situation like this before, where you had like this elder statesman on the defense or within a team that he helped coach. And I asked him that, and he said that the Houston, excuse me, my coffee got stuck there. He said that with the Texans several years ago, Romeo Cornell, former NFL head coach, had been in the DC role and was shifted into senior defensive assistant, something like that. And what he did was similar to what Nebraska's asking of Phil Snow this year, and Butler seemed to like that arrangement.
Yeah, it's it'll be fascinating because I mean a lot of it is just how those people, the players in the story, how they sort of accept it and how they are able to work with each other on a day-to-day basis and all of those things. It'll be one that we're tracking, no doubt about it, throughout the spring and into the summer.
Yeah, speaking of the individual stories, there are a lot of them on this Nebraska defense, and three that we've spent only limited time discussing here in this offseason so far are the older players. And there's one at each level of the defense, an elder statesman, I suppose you could say, who are back and had opportunities if they wanted to leave Nebraska in this offseason with a coordinator change. All three, at least of these three, they chose to come back. And they had words for the media on Tuesday, including some that I found to be really striking and interesting from one Javin Wright. That is coming up after this.
But first, a word from our friends at Monarch Money. You've been going out to eat. You've been taking trips. Maybe I'm just saying these things about myself. It's really, this is me. Going out to eat, been taking trips. And so wondering, why do I have less money? And I need the ability to track these things. That's what would help me out the most. And that's where Monarch Money comes into play. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. But it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, how much money you're spending, investments, and all of those, what you have, what you don't have, all in one place. So you stop just managing your money, and then you're able to start building your wealth. It has all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances today with Monarch Money, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off, 50% off your first year. monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, welcome back here on this Wednesday. Connor Happerman Sherman with you. Get your questions in for the mailbag episode coming up on Friday. We will take whatever you have for us, whether you want to talk about TikToks or cold weather or the Royals or baseball. I don't care. Whatever. We'll take them in the mailbag show. Football is an option. Football is an option and a primary option, of course, as well. The Crown, Nebraska, Georgetown tonight. First time ever these historic programs lock horns in it's the Crown at MGM Garden Grand Arena in Vegas.
We're gonna have like any Georgetown greats there on the sideline.
Yeah, I assume Allen Iverson will be there. You know, I'm sure there's some more that'll be ending up there.
I mean, it is a destination venue, so
yeah.
How many Nebraska? We were watching the Crown, the Nebraska game against Arizona State on Monday night as we recorded the Tuesday pod, and I couldn't really tell in the arena, like it didn't appear to be full. And you've been in that gym.
What is very small?
4,000, 3,000?
Maybe. Yeah, it's small. The seats are uncomfortable. They're like folding chairs. It's an odd little place.
Do Nebraska fans start to take notice? Like there are at least there's a somewhat robust crew of Nebraska alums and fans in Southern Nevada. Well, do they start to go now? I mean, you get Nebraska, Georgetown. That's Nebraska against a name basketball program. Is this something that people want?
Closer to the weekend, maybe people start to migrate down. It's easy. It's an easy weekend trip if you want to make it. So I think if they win tonight, people might be interested in the semifinals and the finals. They move arenas, by the way, for the semifinals and finals. They go over to where the Vegas Golden Knights play across the street at T-Mobile Arena. So yeah, I don't. That might be worse because that's like a big arena and there might be 10 people there, but it's at least a real arena, so that's good.
Who's the potential opponent in the semifinal round?
Wouldn't it be Boise State?
Oh,
I think it'd be Boise State. If they win today, they play somebody.
All right. Well, maybe the last opportunity. It will be at some point this week. The last opportunity to see Juwan Gary and Bryce Williams in a Nebraska uniform. So
Boise State Butler is on the other side.
All right, Butler. Let's keep it going against the Big East. That would be an somewhat enticing matchup. So, the Crown, it is here. April, Nebraska basketball. So, as I mentioned before the break, veterans on the Nebraska defense who have chosen to run it back and be a part of this John Butler scheme. You got Elijah Judy up front. You've got Javin Wright in the middle of the Nebraska defense as a seventh-year senior who has dealt with all kinds of medical issues. The blood clots have come back. They have knocked him out of seasons. He's had regular injuries on top of that. I mean, Javin standing up at the podium, he's 25 and he could probably pass for 28, 30 if, he needed to. Just a mature and he's mature. He sounds like it. Like he's been around football his whole life. His dad, Toby, was a Nebraska player and played professionally. So this is a guy who's seen it all. It's funny. He mentioned that like he can be a bridge to different generations of Nebraska football. And he shouted out Jay Foreman, who somebody from his dad's era, and Jay is around the program now, and it lives in Lincoln, and then Ja'Cory Barney. So from Jay Foreman to Ja'Cory Barney, Javin Wright is the guy to connect multiple eras of Nebraska football. That's a little side story. And then Deshaun Singleton also talked on Tuesday. He was set to go play in an all-star game, have his pro day, try to hook up with an NFL team. And he said, hey, the opportunity to come back, this was like related to the junior college ruling that gave players an extra season of eligibility. And it was there for Singleton. And he said he couldn't pass up the opportunity to come back to Nebraska. In previous years, you'd think, well, the opportunity here would be to go and play in the NFL. But now college football is viewed as an opportunity, and not like a financial opportunity. So Deshaun Singleton is going to take advantage of that for one more year.
Yeah, I think it speaks highly on the program and the coaching staff, because when those guys come back, I mean, there's no guarantees in what you get from Javin Wright. Obviously, you hope that you could get the most out of him, and we've talked often on this podcast about how deep Nebraska is in the secondary and all of those things. Obviously, Singleton's going to be one of the names that plays back there, and he'll be depended on. But you come back after you're expected to not come back, and it's a different apparatus now. The coordinator is different. The defense is different. Nebraska's, you're in a different era kind of college football. So what you're asking of those guys is for, to come back, and you have to tell them, you have to be upfront with them. Hey, look, your roles are going to change too. Like, you can't come back and be the same person. You have to be different, and you have to adapt and adjust as well. And in order for this to work out for both of us, you have to, sort of morph into a different version of yourself as well. And they're like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. And that, I think that reflects really, really well on the program and the coaching staff and all those things. And they're important guys for Nebraska to have on defense this year.
Can you imagine being Javin Wright and getting into a meeting or out there on the practice field, and you're lined up with Christian Jones, and you realize that when you started your career, when Javin Wright started his career at Nebraska, Christian Jones was in like 6th grade.
Yeah, like 7th grade. It's like, yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I've been here. You could pat him on top of the head. It's like, hey, buddy, I've been here since the Bill Callahan era. What do you think about that?
I found it like really notable to hear Javin Wright talk about just kind of his why he does what he does. We went down that road a little bit with Butler, and I don't have the video of it to play, but here's a quote from Javin Wright. He said, "I knew that my path is a little bit different than everyone else's. I would obviously like to go to the next level, but even if my road is a little windier than most, I'm going to make it, and I'm going to achieve that goal that I have set out since I was 6 years old. So if that means risking my life to play the game, I will do that."
Pretty extreme.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is with him. I mean, I guess you could say everybody risks their life when they play the game of football. You never know, like, what could happen in any moment. We've seen those kind of scares on a football field, but for Javin Wright, it's much more real. I mean, a blood clot can be deadly, and he's had multiple instances where football has made this condition worse. It's dangerous for him to be out there, and Nebraska's not going to throw him out into a situation where it's viewed as especially dangerous. But for him, the risk is different, and I think it speaks to his love of the sport. And as he said, the goals. I don't know if his goal. It sounded like when he was saying that he meant his goal since he was 6 years old was to play in the NFL. It may have just been to like follow in his dad's footsteps and be a star at Nebraska. So we'll see. But he's somebody to watch through the rest of this calendar year.
Super easy guy to work to root for. And really everybody's just, I think, crossing their fingers like, come on, let it all come together for this guy just one time. That's the hope, I think, with Javin Wright. All right. Once again, get your questions in for the mailbag episode coming up on Friday. We have one more show in between, and we appreciate you making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball as they dive into the final 3 games of the college basketball season. You could be the most informed college basketball fan right now. Find Locked On College Hoops on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.